With the unemployment rate stuck above 9%, the theme of President Obama's State of the Union address tonight is expected to be about creating jobs. The president will also focus on improving education and call on government to reduce its debt. It will be his first address since the midterm elections, when Democrats lost control of the House and saw their majority in the Senate reduced. For a closer look at what to expect tonight, we are joined by CBSNews.com political reporter Brian Montopoli. Thanks for being with us, Brian.
Of course.
So do you expect this State of the Union address to really be a way for the president to set the tone for his re-election bid?
100%. I mean, if you look back to the tax cut deal that was passed in the lame duck session, that was the first time that Americans had really seen in about 2 years Obama fulfilling his campaign promise from his first campaign, where he said, I'm going to sort of rise above and I'm going to bring people together and we're going to make Washington work. And that helped. I mean, independents have broken to him. Then you had the Tucson speech, the memorial, that I think people responded really well to. And you've seen his numbers go up a little bit. And that's what works for him. The other thing is, this is the reality. I mean, the Republicans now have the House. So Obama can't do what he did in his first 2 years. You can't pass health care with only Democrats. You can't pass financial reform with only Democrats. You have to work with Republicans. So the president's message is, I'm going to reach out, I'm going to rise above the politics. And, you know, the Gabrielle Giffords situation, I don't want to, obviously, of course it was an awful situation, but from the president's perspective, it did give him an opportunity to maybe try to change the tone a little bit and try to sort of portray himself as somebody who is going to help change the tone in Washington. And I think he's going to try to do that.
So that being said, do you think we're going to see a similar tone like the one he used in Tucson at the State of the Union address? It's
going to be very different than think about last year, right? The president called out the Supreme Court. There was that situation with Samuel Alito. 2009, there was a speech where Joe Wilson yelled, "You lie." None of that's going to happen. You have these people sitting next to each other this time, Democrats and Republicans sitting next to each other. I mean, everyone's trying to be nice. This is a period where Washington is trying to at least look like they're willing to work together, and the president's actually going to get, I think, a lot of credit for that. That said, you know, the day after the State of the Union, Darrell Iss's committee is holding a hearing, calling Tim Geithner, talking about TARP. I mean, we're going to get back to some of the nastiness, but I think for the State of the Union this year, it's going to be about unity, and I think that that's something that the American people welcome.
Let's talk about that unity for just a second, because you mentioned it, and it's worth repeating that we're going to see Republicans and Democrats sitting together and not divided during the State of the Union address. Is that something that's really going to resonate? Is it believable, or is it just going to be a stunt?
It's a stunt, but it's a nice stunt. I mean, it's one of those things where you say, can a symbolic action make a difference? I mean, the reality here is the Republicans and Democrats have very different beliefs, and frankly, they have very different donors who expect very different things from them, and that's not going to change just because they sat next to each other. But you know, maybe if they sit next to each other, they can try to find areas where they can agree. I mean, one thing that Obama might talk about today is talking about the corporate tax rate, and that's something Republicans welcome, maybe making a cut to the corporate tax rate. So they're going to be looking for areas of agreement, and maybe you put a conservative Republican next to a liberal Democrat, and they get to chatting, and maybe they figure something out.
The president's also going to be talking about reducing the debt. But just hours before the State of the Union address, we're going to see the House vote on reducing his budget. Are we going to see a bit of a response to that? Because we're talking $100 million from his budget.
Well, this is the crucial difference. This is the debate over the next 2 years. You've got Republicans saying cut, 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 cut. That's their message. Obama's message is different. He says we need to cut responsibly, but we need to continue with investment in things like infrastructure, education, and that is what Republicans call spending and what they call wasteful spending, the stimulus, that kind of thing. Obama wants to keep spending money. He feels that if you don't, the fragile economic recovery could end. But the Republicans are just saying, look, we need to cut. The problem for the Republicans is they want to go back to 2008 levels of discretionary spending, but they're not giving us a lot of specifics. Until the Republicans come out and say, we're going to do this to Social Security, we're going to do this to Medicare, we're going to do this on defense spending, I think it's a little hard to take it seriously. When there are specific cuts, then people can talk. Interestingly, if you give me 1 second here, Paul Ryan, the Republican who's responding to the State of the Union, put forth a budget plan, he called it a blueprint, that actually did deal with some of these specifics, but a lot of people in his party didn't want to talk about it, because once you start getting into the specifics of what you're going to cut, then things get a little ugly, and then people start to say, wait, are you going to take away my Social Security? So the question is, are the Republicans going to get specific? They're saying let's go back to 2008 levels, but they're not saying exactly what they want to cut.
All right, it's going to be interesting to see what the president has to say. We do appreciate what you've had to say. Thanks for your insight. Thanks, Brian.